you ever wanted a sewing genie in your room? Well, we have a Triangle Genie, and this is the ruler of the month. Hi, I'm Sarah from Heirloom Creations, and we're going to walk you through how you can use a special ruler that will allow you to cut half square triangles in 5 designated sizes, but I'm going to show you a little trick how you can make additional sizes. I've actually played with a little sampler here, and we're going to walk through all these different shapes, including quarter square triangles and 3D flying geese and 3D kites, all done with this one simple ruler. So let's identify the parts of the Triangle Genie ruler. First off, you'll notice that the lines are drawn are all designated for using strips of fabric. So everything is done kind of straight of grain here, which I love. We have an align with bottom edge of fabric, so when we do put it on our strip of fabric, that will go ahead and sit down below. This is a 2.5 inch strip, so if you're working with jelly rolls, this is going to be a very easy tool to use. And then we've got lines or grooves in the ruler that we can make marks. Some are vertical and some are diagonal, and depending on what combination of finished shapes of blocks you are wanting, the directions will guide you whether you sew, cut, or mark on certain lines. So it's pretty ingenious. And boy, if you are a gadget girl, you are going to love how this works. So we're going to start off with doing the half square triangles. And many of you have used like the paper foundations, which means you have to rip it off. And also too, it's only usually done in one size. So this allows you at any given time to change up your patterns to be for any size block. Now you have patterns already in your collection that use half square triangles and quarter square triangles. This will simplify the process. So to start off with, we have taken our fabric and we're going to do right sides together, and you can just draw on the lighter color. That's the easiest way to start. So you don't even have to layer them just yet, but mine are layered. The first thing we're going to do is line up the bottom line, align with edge of fabric, down along here. Next, we're going to go ahead and draw on our fabric the lines. You can use a mechanical pencil or even a fine Sharpie marker. And if you're worried about the Sharpie marker showing, you can actually do a lighter color like a yellow. So what I'm doing is just following along and drawing in each of these lines. Those on this particular project are lines, and we're going to sew 1/4 inch on each side of the lines. So you're going to see that the final stitching is going to be down and back. And now to continue on, all you need to do is line up the line on the bottom and the line on the top, and then place the last line you drew right underneath the line within that groove there and continue drawing. Super simple here. I think I like this method because if I was at a sewing retreat, these would be things that I could just do mindlessly. You can't really goof because you're always using lines to sew on or draw on. And I could still enjoy being around my friends. So this would be great for one of those. Okay, so I'm going to just continue drawing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the sewing machine, put my 1/4 inch foot on, and sew on both sides of every diagonal line. When we come back, we're going to cut on the lines. So what you're seeing are vertical lines and diagonal lines that we drew with the Triangle Genie ruler. Then I went ahead and stitched a 1/4 inch on both sides of the diagonal lines all the way down. And to tell you the truth, what I did was I went down here, 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 and then came back on the other side to really make it an efficient way of sewing. Now we're going to go ahead and cut them apart. So you're going to just take your ruler and place it on the line. We'll cut on all drawn lines. We're going to cut on the vertical lines and the diagonal lines. Diagonal ones don't need to be as perfect, but the vertical ones do. So kind of make sure that you know what you're doing, and you can just spin them around and get them all cut apart. And look, you have your half square triangles. Now I mentioned that you could make these any size you want, even beyond the ruler size that is designated from 1.5 inch wide strips all the way to using 3.5 wide strips. So what you can do is if you were working with something bigger, let's say 4.5 inch wide strips, all you'd need to do is draw the lines and then extend the lines so you can continue on with the sewing and cutting that you'll be using. Let's take a look at what else you can do with half square triangles. By starting off with one strip that has actually been pieced together and layering it with your background color, you can actually get multiple stripes all the way through your triangles. But do note, if you look right here, you'll notice the red is on the bottom. On these two, the red is on the tip, and then it switches. So now we have green on the side and red on the side. So one strip will actually give you 4 different directions of triangles. So just be aware of that. But wouldn't that be fun to add to your next quilt? You just take your fabric, line it up with the lower line on the Triangle Genie, and then go ahead and draw your lines just like you did, and then sew on both sides of the diagonal lines and cut apart. For quarter square triangles, we're going to do the same thing, but slightly different sewing. You're going to notice that this strip they're laid right sides together, but it's sewn on the outside edges. Use the Triangle Genie ruler to go ahead and draw both vertical and diagonal lines. Now, to cut these apart, what you're going to do is cut on all drawn lines. So it's going to look like this. Now, when you go to open these, the edges have been stitched, so you're going to have to loosen up just a little bit of that stitching. But once you're done, you are ending up with half of the triangle. And then just go ahead and stitch those together. Now, keep in mind that if you want to have a 3-inch finished square here, your sizes of strips you're going to cut is a 1/2 inch narrower. So if this is 3 inches, then these strips are 2.5 inches. Stitch them together and they will come out perfect every time. Just remember to subtract that 1/2 inch. Don't these look like attic windows? Let me show you how simple this is. It's going to be just like the striped half square triangles, except this time we're going to add an extra stripped piece where the background is. So we're going to take our 2 pieces that are stripped, put them together. I like to press one way and one the other, and then go ahead and use the Triangle Genie to draw all your lines, and then go ahead and stitch just like we did before on all diagonal lines. 1/4 inch away, and then trim on all mark lines, and then you'll have all your squares. Keep in mind that you'll actually have 4 different combinations here, so depending on how you plan to put them all together, and for example, look at this square. That's when you put them all together. The 3D flying geese blocks are kind of neat because they actually have this extra little folded fabric in here. And if you're clever and you've seen those quilts that actually have those kind of folded in, peeled in, that will give you wonderful curved looking quilts. So this is going to have a different setup. So first off, you have your background pieces. Those are cut in strips. This one here is 3.5 inches. But the red piece, the 3D triangles, are cut much wider and then folded in half and inserted. They are designed to be about 1/4 inch shorter than the background piece. Now, to use the ruler, all you're going to do is put it down and draw vertical lines. No diagonal lines on this one here. So then you're going to go ahead and stitch 1/4 inch to the right of each line. After sewing 1/4 inch to the right of each line, no peeking. It's going to be too big. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, and we are going to once again just measure your strip size. This was 3.5 inches. We need to trim this down to a 3.5 inch square. So I'm going to just put my ruler again along that line, and we have just a little tiny waist. But now when we open this up, you're going to notice that everything matches. So here's the 3D part. We've inserted this fabric, and that will now lay perfectly with the outside fabric. To make these fabulous 3D kites, we're going to use the Triangle Genie for just cutting triangles or half square triangles. So I'm going to take my background fabric and draw. This one here is 2.5 inches. So I'm going to just line that up like we've been doing, and go ahead and draw your lines, vertical and diagonal, all the way across. Now, before you cut them apart, let's be efficient here. Let's go ahead and double it up. Now, since you're usually drawing on the back side of the fabric, just because it's going to be easier to see, when you put these fabrics right sides together and you cut these triangle units, keep them together, because that way you definitely want to, then they're all the way together. You know what? I'm going to highlight one of these lines a little bit more. Here we go. That's one of our lines to cut on. Great. So we'll just go ahead and take our ruler and cut our half square triangle units just like this. And cut all your strips all the way through. So you'll notice how fast you actually get half square triangles. Ta-da. Okay, so we'll just do those for now. Next, you're going to take that same size, and so if you're doing 2.5-inch strips, then you need to cut squares that are 2.5-inch square. Okay, so now it's about time to put these all together. So you're going to go ahead and keep those, these were already apart, keep those together. Separate them just a little bit. Take your fabric, you're going to fold it wrong sides together and place the tip of the long folded side even with the little notch. Notice you're always going to have that little notch there, and just place that inward and then line up the edges right along here. And then go ahead and kind of sandwich that all in there, and you're going to stitch down the diagonal edge. What you're going to get, here we go. Once it's stitched, when you open that up and press it, you will have the kite perfectly aligned to sit in that corner. So what are you waiting for? Order your Triangle Genie today from heirloomcreations.net.